Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uli Stills, the new head of Novo Nordisk office here in Boston. Welcome, Uli. And we are both on stage now to announce the poster winners, and I'm going to let Uli take it from here.
Thank you, Vinit, for the introduction. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to participate at the MALSI meeting today. We were just saying you picked a beautiful day, and I really look forward also to the next event where we meet live. Hopefully we can do this next year. Now, I would like to say a few words about Novo Nordisk, about the Bio Innovation Hub and myself. So Novo Nordisk is a biopharmaceutical company, very much focused on cardiometabolic diseases, which is 90% of our business. We also have a smaller rare disease, hemophilia business. We opened up the Bio Innovation Hub last year here in Boston, and it's really in the core, it's an R&D unit. We brought into this unit scientific talent from Novo Nordisk, both from research, but also from development. And the core focus of this unit is to work with innovators, entrepreneurs here in Cambridge, Boston, to co-create novel therapeutic concepts. So for instance, we have a strong interest, and we discussed it this morning at a panel, to work with emerging platform technology companies and then see how this platform technology can be used and utilized in the cardiometabolic space to develop novel therapeutic solutions to help patients with unmet need. But of course, we also have a strong interest to work with academic research, basic science, and help translate early discoveries into therapeutics. Myself, I'm a chemist, biochemist by training, and have spent the last 25 years in pharmaceutical R&D, mostly bringing projects from very early concepts to up to phase 2 assets across primarily cardiometabolic and inflammatory diseases. So real pleasure to be here today. And my main task today is also now here to announce the poster winners. I would like to start with the judge poster winner, which goes to Pavanjali from Stata DX, a work focused on diagnosis monitoring of neurological diseases. So my congratulations. If that would be live now, I would, of course, have a check to present. So just imagine this $2,000 check, which goes over to you. Congratulations again. And now we will have a minute to watch again the presentation.
Which is expensive, inconvenient, and inaccessible. Not many people know that neurological diseases are the largest contributor to global disease burden and accounts for nearly 10% of death worldwide. Until now, the screening and monitoring of neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, and traumatic brain injury depended on MRI, which is expensive, inconvenient, and inaccessible. What if we could have built a biomarker-based liquid MRI for the brain? Stata DX is building the world's first point-of-care diagnostic platform that can detect a panel of neurological proven biomarkers in a finger prick blood. The underlying technology from the Harvard Swiss Institute is intrinsically superior to existing point-of-care diagnostic platform as it solves decades-old problem of biofouling in electrochemistry and enables highly multiplex detection and sensitive detection of blood biomarkers like never before. To learn more about this chip, please visit poster number 7.
Now it's my pleasure to also announce the second poster winner, which is the audience favorite poster winner, which goes to Marshall Ma for the work focused on cardiac toxicity screening. And also, Marshall, for this team, there is a check to Imagine over $2,000. Congratulations. And now we will also see this movie.
drug development has been stagnated for 2 decades. What's slowing us down? Cardiotoxicity screening is the bottleneck. 12 years and $2 billion are needed to test one single drug.
I'm Marshall Ma from Boston University. We built a faster, cheaper, and more ethical screening system using engineered cardiac tissue.
We managed to mold or 3D print tissue scaffolds into industry standard 96 well plate, allowing parallel tissue seeding and culturing. A unique microscope captures the field of view for the whole plate, projects a palm-sized image to a common CMOS camera. In each frame, sub-images of 96 tissue samples are collected into a mosaic. Physiological parameters such as the contractile force can be measured at video rate, 20 times faster than before.
One more thing. All parts in the system are commercial, off-the-shelf products. No additional patent is needed. Thanks to your attention, with raised awareness and support in commercializing this tool, let's find more remedies together and faster.
That's wonderful, Lee. Thank you so much for believing in MALSI, as you know, for many years in a row, and welcome to Boston. And we wish Novo Nordisk all the success, and thank you for announcing the $2,000 check winners.
Thanks for having me, Vinit. Real pleasure to participate.
That's great. So now we're going to move on to the next part of our event, which is the Pharma Innovation Panel. And this will be our final, structured part of the event. After that, it'll just be open networking right till as long as people want to stay. So it's my pleasure to invite Ken Turner, CEO of Massachusetts Life Sciences Center, to come on and tell us a little bit about MLSC as well to introduce the Pharma Innovation Panel.
Hi, my name is Ken Turner, and it's a pleasure to represent the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center and to be with you this afternoon. I'm proud that the center has continued its support and partnership for convenings like this afternoon, where we bring together innovators, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and investors and recognize and celebrate why our ecosystem here in the Commonwealth makes us such a global leader in the life sciences space. For those who did their pre-event Googling, are currently multitasking and Googling my name right now, you're going to find out very quickly that I'm not a scientist and that I don't have deep background experience in the life sciences by any means. I'm relatively new to my role here as the president and CEO of the Mass Life Science Center. But I can tell you that one of the aspects that I'm already enjoying about my new job is that I'm learning a lot about this community and this ecosystem and its shared commitment to embrace the power of the collective spirit. For me, our ability to come together and to work together towards solutions like we're doing today is what makes our Commonwealth and our life sciences ecosystem so very special. For those of you who may not know, the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center is an economic development and investment authority with a mission of supporting the growth and the development of the life sciences here in Massachusetts. Put another way, me and my team are part of an organization that serves as the hub of the Massachusetts Life Sciences ecosystem. The center has made a number of recent investments to continue our mission, and I'll share with you just a few that I'm particularly proud of. We've invested $18 million in capital funding to support research infrastructure, data science, and drug delivery projects. We've invested $3.4 million in support of new and expanded STEM curricula at 93 plus schools, supporting more than 38,200 students and providing more than 730 teachers with professional development. We've invested $19.5 million, in job creation incentives for 28 Massachusetts life science companies, and we're expected to create over 1,300 life science jobs in the next year. And finally, support for our new cohort of 5 women-led companies who received individual grants of $87,500 and access to a network of executive coaches for a year through our Mass Next Gen program. Since our inception in 2008, these and other efforts of the center have translated into nearly $800 million of investments committed into the life sciences ecosystem, which has generated $4.1 billion of leveraged investments in the Commonwealth and created more than 14,000 jobs here in Massachusetts. I say all of that to say this. The Life Sciences Center is all in towards continuing our mission to be the catalyst of innovation across our ecosystem and our Commonwealth. And one of the reasons I'm so bullish on this assertion is that I know we're not alone in this endeavor. There are numerous people and partnerships that continue to be built and that grow, and I know that will help us to reach new levels of excellence here in the life sciences. So to that end, it is my pleasure to introduce a terrific panel that will cover innovation in the pharma space. Thank you all for letting me join you here this afternoon. And now let me hand things over to today's moderator, Imran Nasrullah. Imran?
Hello, my name is Imran Nasrullah, and I'll be moderating the panel today on innovation by pharmaceutical companies. And I would like to have the panelists come join me on the stage. We'll do some introductions. They'll come here.
Right. Imran may be having technical difficulties. I'll give him a minute. Maybe we can go around and introduce ourselves while he's logging back in. So I'll do that. So hi everyone, I'm Liz Leveille. I work at Merck. I lead the business development licensing team out of Boston and Europe. And so I'll pass it on to maybe Wendi. Imran, we're just introducing ourselves while you're while you were at technical difficulties.
Yep. So I'm Wendi Yajnik. Oh, there's an echo. Sorry about that. I'm Wendi Yajnik. I work for Novartis Institutes for Biomedical Research. We're focused on academic innovation, early stage pipeline. Nice to meet you all virtually.
I can go next. I'm Swarna Balasubramanian. I'm with AstraZeneca within the Emerging Innovations Unit. I'm based out of Boston.
Hopefully you can hear me. It looks like my connection is acting up a little bit too, but I'm Anjali Kumar, Research and Evaluation at Johnson & Johnson Innovation out of our offices in Kendall Square.
Great. And while we'll act as a de facto, for now, moderator, while we don't have Imran. So maybe we can each talk a little bit about, the topic is innovation in pharma. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what our different companies are doing to access innovation in different ways. So maybe, Anjali, maybe you'd like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think folks know that Johnson & Johnson was one of the early players that wanted to think about working in the innovation ecosystems in a new way. So almost 9 years ago now, Johnson & Johnson Innovation was founded, and we adopt a bit of a hub and spoke model where we are key innovation centers in key regional hubs like Boston, San Francisco, London, and Shanghai. And then certainly we have folks all over the world that cover hopefully most of the world. And like our office is out of Cambridge. We cover East North America for all of our sectors. So, unlike our colleagues here, we have a huge farm sector, of course, as you know, but also med devices and consumer health, and then all of the cross-sector innovation as well. So it's been quite the journey here. We're very happy to see, more and more people jump in, to think about the innovation ecosystem in a new way. So perhaps maybe just to reiterate that the Innovation Center would support external innovation pre-human proof of concept. So, for later stage assets and acquisitions, we do have a more traditional business development group out of New Jersey. Maybe just stop it there and see where you want to take this, Liz, or if Imran is back.
So I'm back. I hope that you can all hear me, which is great. You're all nodding your head, so that's terrific. So why don't we do this? Just have each of you, I know Anjali, you just went, but just for the sake of time limit, each of you just tell yourself who you are to the audience and your organization. We'll jump right into the questions and try to make up some time. So Wendi, why don't you go first, and then I'll go in order of the screen. So quick intro.
Sure. As I mentioned, I'm Wendi Yajnik. I'm the global head for academic partnerships and external innovation. We're based in Cambridge for Novartis. And we actually focus globally on innovation. So it's not just Cambridge based, actually. So thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
Sure. So I introduced myself earlier, and I'll just say a little bit more about the Innovation Hub for Business Development. Similar to what Anjali just mentioned, we have folks in Boston, London, San Francisco, or New Jersey, and Asia. And our thinking is to be really close to the entrepreneurs and academic innovators and biotech so that we can really be part of the ecosystem.
So, clearly I came late to the game here because you've all introduced yourself. So just for consistency, Swarna, very quickly introduce yourself and then we'll jump to the question.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm a program lead within the Emerging Innovation Unit, and we focus on really disruptive science and technologies that are 5 to 10 years out, and we help catalyze those ideas. There are also other groups whom we work with internally, both on later stage technologies.
Great. Okay. So now that we've all introduced ourselves, my name is Imran, and I apologize for coming late to this. I've been having technical issues. So I'm the North American head for open innovation at Bayer, and I'll be your moderator for today. I think what we would like to get out of this discussion is really to explain to our audience, how does Big Pharma think about innovation, and what are the challenges that we often face? I know that for many of you, Big Pharma may seem like it's a kind of a big black box and it's hard to penetrate, and you don't know who to talk to. I want to assure you today the panelists that we have are all people that you should connect with as they are leaders in their organization that are all charged with getting to know all of you. So with that, I'm going to start with a philosophical question about innovation and how pharma thinks about it. Wendi, I'm going to start with you. And can you tell me, what is your company's philosophical approach to working with ecosystems?
Sure. So that pleasure to answer that question. Our company at Novartis has traditionally worked with academia, but there's been an enhanced focus on academic innovation starting about 5 years ago when Jay Bradner, who came from Dana-Farber, became our president of research. He himself is an entrepreneur, inventor, and really felt like we could do more in the academic innovation. And so, of course, we have BD&L that's global as well, focusing in I would say, later stage innovation, and we're completely focused on academic innovation. So it's a brand new function. It's one of the 6 pillars of our strategy called opening the framework. And so we've been working very hard globally to get to know the technology licensing offices, as well as offering new programs to work with them. So thank you.
Anjali, can you tell us a little bit about J&J's philosophy, since I think you guys were the ones that started this concept of innovation centers?
Yeah, for sure. So maybe just building on what Wendi said, we too, see our mandate as, first of all, of course, it's important to, fill the company's pipeline with transformational products, in the future. So be forward looking, from that perspective. But second, we also are sort of the, feet on the ground, be able to take what you see in the external ecosystem and help shape strategy, so it's not just about executing strategy, but hopefully contributing to shaping the strategy, as in, if you're not paying attention to this, you should, and so that's kind of the dual role. And then third, we feel like, we're the entrepreneurial bunch. And I know we seem, Imran said, the big black box, scary big pharma, but, most of us spend a lot of time in, startup companies as well as big pharma. So we've definitely, been in your shoes, and we fully understand what it takes, in a small company. So think of us as your advocates, within the larger organization. And we say that we, wrong word to use in these days, but, in fact, the J&J ecosystem with the entrepreneurial culture that we're exposed to, time and time again. So.
Yeah, and I'd just like to highlight.
Swarna, can you tell us about your thoughts? Oh.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Imran, I missed the question. Yeah.
Oh, just a little bit about the philosophy of your organization and when it comes to innovation.
Yeah, AstraZeneca is a very science-focused organization. So when we have the conversations with our partners, it's at a scientific level. Okay, let's talk about the science. Curiosity questions are people love to discuss the science, and it's also the concept of mentoring and giving back to the society. I think it's a fundamental philosophy within the company. We started AZ Exchange in the UK, then it spread to Nordics, and now it's in the US as well as in Australia and other regions. So what we think of is, if you think of drug development as a sort of relay race, many of the innovators are really hoping that the big pharma will be that last runner, right? Taking the torch across that finish line and giving to the products to the patients. So there's a lot of learnings that's coming out of that. And I think it's very important that each of us share that learnings, that wholesome perspective to the innovation community, so that they can optimize the products better. So we are about giving back as well as putting the patients first.
And Liz.
Yeah, I just like to echo what everyone on the panel has said, and just for those who are entrepreneurs who are have not been in industry before, and it does seem daunting talking to a big pharma. Just know that everything you're hearing really does mean that we all are looking to meet with you early and often, and it may not lead to something right away, but we are here for a relationship building, and also to help guide as much as we can. We can't be everywhere all the time, but as much as we can, us and our teams are there to try to help guide you. We know there's limited resources when you're starting from something from nothing. And we don't expect that you're going to have, everything that a big pharma may have at a similar stage. But, as much as we can help guide, and I do recommend you talk to, anyone, and everyone, and all the pharma companies, because it does allow you to have some quote unquote free advice, right? It helps you to guide your work with limited resources and what have the best chance to success. So that's what I'll add.
Yeah, maybe Imran is having trouble there.
I just want to pick up on a point. Hopefully you can hear me. So I just want to pick up on a point that Swarna had made around mentoring. I think all of our companies engage in mentoring in some form of another. In your minds, what have you picked up from talking to early stage companies through the mentoring process about what their pain points are, and I guess marrying the pain points to kind of your philosophical approach? Do you see this as a way of kind of helping these companies forward? And Anjali, I'm gonna go with you first on this one. Yeah,
of course. Thanks, Imran. So absolutely. I would say that this is one of those amazing jobs where you learn every single day. Like there's hardly a day that goes by that I haven't heard or thought about something I did not know, before. So, it's a lot of give and take. I echo Liz's comments, definitely talk to us early and often, because, most of the times entrepreneurs we're looking for transformational solutions, right? One of the challenge of transformational solutions is they are at the cutting edge of things where it takes time to socialize things, even internally, right? So as we're talking to entrepreneurs, we're having those discussions internally, and, everyone is learning together. We're asking questions, and hopefully that's helping entrepreneurs come up with what sorts of questions they have to prepare to answer. So there's that benefit. And similarly, internally, we're kind of laying the groundwork for when that opportunity advances, enough for there to be a deal. So like Liz said, it's not like every conversation has to end in a deal. So it's a journey, and we're taking that together. So we're definitely learning right alongside you. And, to the point about pain points, I mean, great ideas don't necessarily make great products, right? You have to have the great ideas. You have to have a business plan, resources, mentoring, financing. And so from our perspective, we've built a whole suite of tools, that we could leverage. So, maybe all you need is mentoring and advice. Maybe you need company incubation. Maybe there is small investments. Maybe there is a traditional, venture investment. So all of these are, different parts of our JJI, Johnson & Johnson Innovation Organization. And so together, sort of, we'll find the right solution, that would be the most value creating for you and for us, hopefully, in the future.
Excuse me. Yeah, Wendi, how about yourself?
Sure. So, when we think about mentoring, actually, we have been developing multiple training programs for scientists to come work at NIBR, either in Basel or Emeryville or in the US. So these are really, really amazing programs for postdoctoral fellows to come and kind of mentor them on how to think about drug development. One of our programs is called Discovery Track, and that's basically to do fundamental science, and the main output would be a nice publication in a journal, peer-reviewed journal. And we like to publish very much, actually, at Novartis, at NIBR. And then the second one is an innovation track where postdocs can actually come in and work on pipeline projects. So the goal there is not really to publish, but to maybe end up as an inventor on a patent. But really, we feel that mentoring young scientists to become better drug hunters would be the ultimate mentoring we can provide so that we could have medicines.
I think Wendi might have froze a little bit there. Liz, do you want to pick up where?
Sure.
Where Wendi, I think. Why don't you?
Yeah, I think similar to what you're hearing from everyone is that mentoring is a core piece of all of our roles and our team's roles, right? And reason why we are where we are in the geography. It's really to help everything from, I meet with companies that are just out of stealth mode or in stealth mode, and we give advice even on the business side. It's like, well, you may want to partner this and not partner that. We'd assume, right? Just kind of giving that mentoring business advice on what makes sense for them. And programs that we have like Mass Connect for Massachusetts Biotech Council and other things our teams are very active in. And so mentoring is really part of kind of a win-win situation where, if we spend our time mentoring folks, then there'll be more potential success going forward. And you don't need the agreement necessarily, but we'd hope in the future that through the guidance and relationships that people would pick our institutions as the first place they call if they actually do end up getting the data that they were hoping to get. So a little bit.
And then Swarna?
Yeah, to add to that, when we started the mentoring program, we asked the startups, what are your pain points? Sometimes they are aware, sometimes they are not aware also. So that's also an interesting dynamic. So when they are aware of what are the pain points, then we set them with the mentors. But also sometimes when they are unaware, when they present, we say, hey, have you thought about this manufacturing or CMC angle, regulatory, and maybe bring in some additional experts. Sometimes we do also like group type mentoring so that you get expertise not just from one person, but from a panel of experts. And in doing so, it's also interesting. I run the Asia Exchange program in Boston here, and one of the things we see is the mentors, after mentoring, they see the impact that they make, and they bring that energy and enthusiasm back into the company, like the entrepreneurship, as I say. And so that's like really exciting as well. So it's a two-way street. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've observed with mentoring, and I mean, I started this mentoring with Mass Bio like almost 12 years ago now, which is kind of hard to believe, and bringing it forward into pharma at Boehringer and now at Bayer, is that by paying it forward with early stage innovators. The idea is that, I mean, not every company or every startup is spot on with what you're doing. But if you give back to them and you really believe in these founders as in their capabilities, I think one of the things that I've seen happen is that, okay, maybe the first company wasn't what you were looking for, but they appreciate the feedback and the advice that you give them, so that the second time they start their next company, they actually come back to you with their new idea. And I actually seen that happen with myself, where even though I'd left Boehringer and was now at Bayer, there was an investigator at Tufts who decided that when it came time to starting up his second company, he actually kind of followed me to Bayer and said, hey, I really liked what you did the first time around, so this is why I'm coming back to you the second time around. And so I think there's really a lot to the goodwill that pharma is, I think, giving back to the community. But one thought I had, and maybe when I'm going to direct this to you, because I know that both you and I started in technology transfer, and then over time we kind of went to the industry side. But my sense is that maybe like in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was a much more, I'll say, a tense relationship between academia and biotech and pharma. But I actually see now it's actually, there's much more of a relaxation between the two, and that it's far more collaborative and far more of this idea of give and take back and forth in a friendly way. I mean, like the tension is gone. Do you think the same thing as well, or what have you observed? I'm just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I transitioned to pharma about 6 years ago, and I was really pleasantly surprised. One of the reasons to go to pharma was that I went to Sanofi, and when I said why an academic TLO person, they said, you know what, we really want to do things differently with academia. We want to understand where the pain points are, and we want to change the way we think about some of these things if it's possible. A lot of times it's a business decision and it's not a legal decision. And so they wanted that idea about how to think about business working with an academic. So I've seen that in Sanofi, and as well as in Novartis. And I'll also say, each side is now hiring people from the other side for that same, having more of an understanding of how to work together to move things faster. Things that we thought were obstacles actually are no longer even discussed, which is a good thing, like publication. I mean, how many times do I have to talk about publication? It's going to happen. So it's been a tremendous ride. I really enjoy having had both hats on. So.
And I'm glad that we're no longer referred to as the dark side.
Oh, totally. It's in the enlightening side, I say. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that we run at Bayer are these CEO roundtables, where we try to get early stage CEOs together and really kind of discuss, again, what are their pain points and what are the things that they struggle with, and how can pharma help them. And one of the things that's come out consistently, I think, over the years is this idea that, it would be great. I mean, I'm speaking to this valley of death notion, right? The idea that these early stage companies don't have, the seed capital they need to kind of get the critical experiments that need to do to be more compelling, I guess, for pharma. And so oftentimes this theme of microfunding has come up. And I'm just curious, have you guys thought about this on your own, or just from what you've picked up in mentoring and things like that? And what do you think pharma can do, aside from your corporate venture funds, but what can you do to kind of help small companies kind of get to the next stage in their experiments, whether it's microfunding or some other mechanism? I'm going to start, Swarna, I'm going to start with you and then go from there.
We have seen something similar as well, and in fact, actually sort of building a business case around that as well. So what we're seeing is maybe for the main program there is enough funding to move it forward, but then there are also these interesting pipeline programs which is not getting as much attention. It would benefit that one experiment that will really move it forward. So how do we catalyze that? That's the thing that we are also exploring. In fact, Emerging Innovation, which is the group that I belong to, we make investments in smaller levels to catalyze that first experiment that we can take then back to the Intel business and say, hey, it worked here, and now I think it is ready for a business, bigger investment. So that's how we have been approaching. We are trying to sort of bridge that gap that you're talking about.
Yeah. Anjali, how about yourself?
Yeah, definitely we realize that that's, a really important, need that entrepreneurs need, for us to help with. And we call them connect investments, where it's just a small amount of money with a very well-defined, experiment. That's a de-risking experiment that then, leads to further sort of Series A or whatever participation. Separately, I would add that, lots of times, some of those key de-risking experiments are ones that actually we can perform, right? So it's not unusual to see sort of licensing deals or whatever having a collaboration at the front end of it, so where you basically make the decision to, license at the end of those experiments, where we can either contribute capabilities or dollars, to those experiments. So that's pretty common, actually, to just have an option at the end of that research collaboration part, of the deal. So we do that very, very often.
And then Liz, how about at Merck?
Not much to add there. It's very similar where, many times we would help by running the study that may be missing. Maybe it's a bit expensive to do, whether it's an in vivo study, a non-human primate study, whatever it may be. And so we would run, and then at the end, if there's not a decision to move forward, obviously the company would continue to own that data. It wouldn't be something that Merck would have access to unless we did the deal. So those are very similar. I would say the other thing I've seen a lot of microfunding, which is our help with some of the academic bridge funds that are out there, right? Some of the academic groups have been able to do these bridge funds where, they want their PIs to work more closely with industry, and so they have maybe alumni or other that have donated dollars, but they actually do use a panel of whether it be pharma BD or VCs or others to in a way score the ideas. So there may be a bunch of ideas in their institution, and they like our help to identify which has the best chance of success for things like maybe a $50,000 or $100,000 small funding that might be needed to really make the difference, to be attractive to industry. And we do spend quite a bit of time trying to help with that. Of course, there's no strings attached; it's all non-confidential. But as much as we can help identify, especially when there's other parties who makes the ideas that other parties are already working on. So sometimes it says we just have to let the investigator know this is being done in 2 or 3 other institutions. You may want to make sure that you're differentiating over these others. So it's even ideas like that or information like that could help the investigators going forward.
And Wendi at Novartis, any programs that fall into this kind of microfunding concept or enabling kind of programs?
Yeah, so we haven't really done the microfunding concept, but we do actually often, we do believe in, if we do a license, we sometimes support the research for several years to kind of help advance it. Of course, we offer expertise on all of our collaborations, which has been really helpful. We have this NIBR Global Scholars Program, which is actually funding, it's $1 million over 3 years, so it's not microfunding. But the idea there is our scientist is an expert in the area, working with the PI, and can actually contribute a lot in terms of expertise, how to advance the science. So that's what we've been doing for the last year.
You know, I want to change gears here for a quick second. I know that oftentimes if there's a big lab, you know, in one of the premier institutions, it's I'll say it's fairly easy, relatively speaking, to get the attention of big pharma and maybe stimulate, you know, the creation of a new company. But there is a large majority of people, you know, postdocs and you know, students who have ideas that struggle with how to connect with big pharma, and I guess all in the larger ecosystem. What advice do you have for you know, these kind of early first-time entrepreneurs that are looking to, you know, try to connect with big pharma? How can they get to you other than the webpage, I guess? But any advice that you might have for them?
So
I'll pick on Liz
I would
first.
say my advice would be, if you go to a conference and somebody comes to your poster from a pharma company or a VC, grab their card and follow up, and work with one of us. You know, they will usually work with one of us so we can actually look into the opportunity more. I think a lot of people miss that opportunity when they're at conferences. They get really excited about the science and don't get the card. I think it's always important to grab the card and then network through that.
Yeah, I think that's sage advice, especially hopefully next year when MALSI Day goes live and we're at the poster presentations, they will grab our cards. You know.
That's right. Bring plenty.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, you know, we operate. Yeah, so I think I heard my name. So yeah. So I would say, you know, you kind of glossed over the website, but our pictures are all on there. And you just, you know, put our first name, our last name at our company, and you got us. So email goes a long way to connect, just with information and trying to get that first in. So it is a good way to do that if you're not able to in person, given the virtual world we are currently in, to connect with us at conferences or, you know, other locations.
Angela, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we actually publish our email addresses on the website. So, you know, again, it's I would say a couple things, you know. So it is our job, actually, you know, to listen to your ideas. So we're going to make time for it. I will also say that, you know, most of us are enormously swamped, right? So there's, you know, please understand that, you know, lots of times it's very helpful if you can get someone to introduce you to us, right? Because there's that another layer of validation, you know, and there's also, you know, that additional pressure that, you know, we do need to open your email and we do need to open your attachment. So we're going to get to it sooner or later, but it's probably going to be on the sooner side if it's an introduction through somebody we know. So, you know, again, if we've connected at a conference or if we've actually, you know, if I can put a face to a name or, you know, an email to a name, then I feel like, you know, there's just that much more incentive to open the email. So I'm not going to lie, there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of emails. So we do, you know, it will take some time, but sometimes there are ways to get to us sooner.
Swarna, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can add to that. I would say in this virtual world, also LinkedIn, like for instance, you can put open innovation, AstraZeneca, or emerging innovation. Like if you put the word innovation and the company, I'm sure you'll bring up like the top people. And if you you know, message us via that as well, I think we can see your profile, whom you're connected to, and that is another way we can connect with you.
I want to pick up on something that Anjali said, which was this kind of speaks to like what we struggle with as big organizations, and certainly the volume of email is one of the things that we definitely struggle with. But let me ask Liz. I mean, what else does like Merck struggle with when it comes to the innovation community in general? Like, what are the big obstacles, I guess?
Well, you kind of hinted to it, right? There are a few of us and a lot more of external innovators out there. And so the struggle is just staying on top of everything that's out there. And, we may seem like we're a large, thousands and thousands of people organization, but from a BD perspective, those of us who have the role to connect externally, there aren't that many of us. And so as much as when you do reach out with that email, for example, just understanding a couple things. First, what is the scope of that pharma company's work, right? If you're coming to a company that recently might have divested a particular therapeutic area and with an asset there, it might not be a great idea. So do a little bit of homework on the pharma. Also, show that you know what you don't know. So, it may be something very early, and just being very upfront with these are the things we hope will differentiate over current standard of care for these patients. We don't have the data yet, but here's the timing of when we think we'll have it. It just be very open to where it is in its development. I think when someone says something like, we've reached proof of concept and they really don't have any data, you kind of start scratching your head like, is this really going to be someone that I should be talking to? So just be very open to where you are. We completely understand that it takes resources and time to get the data. So just understanding where you hope to be is helpful.
Wendi, what are some of the big challenges that Novartis faces with a very robust ecosystem?
Yes, so it's a big company, just like all the others. I think you guys hit it on the head. Just the sheer volume of interest, and I think one of the hard things is when you do have that portal coming in to the company managing it. Just because we really want to build these relationships, and I think this. I think it's really hard to manage the volume and how to make that happen without the investigator or the TLO or whoever the partner is getting discouraged. I think that is one of the things that we do have concerns about, is how do we make that happen? I see everybody on the panel nodding away. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges, is just the volume and the number of people doing the work. Yeah.
I think one of the things that, and this gets back to an earlier point that was made, but I think it also relates to the one that you're talking about, Wendi, is the value of relationships. Because I think that if you know somebody, that's out there that has a great idea, and you've visited them before, or there's somebody that you've interacted with repeatedly, and if you've had a good interaction with them, then oftentimes when they come back to you, a second or a third time with a different idea, you're more apt to pick up the phone and take the call, or make sure you get to their emails sooner rather than later. And I think that really speaks to the value of making sure that, scientists turn business people really get out there and network and really kind of build the relationships with people in industry, because this is such a network and relationship driven industry, especially in an ecosystem like Boston, that it's very important to start early in your career as you're maybe leaving the lab and thinking about starting your first company. But this is definitely something that I think is very important. Do you have anything you want to add on this?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention, Imran, you're coming in and out, but I was going to mention on that point that with
Liz, why don't you go? Yeah.
I was going to mention that, with the networking piece that you gave advice for folks on the line, people may be thinking, especially new entrepreneurs, how do I do this in a pandemic? And I think that was the concern, I think over the past year plus, some of us in BD have, we're all been very busy because of the established relationships we had. But what I worried about is the new entrepreneurs that didn't have those relationships, kind of where they were going and how they were connecting, and how they were going to how we were going to know about them and what they were doing. And so maybe now that we're opening up a bit more, that's helpful. But I do understand and just note that it is hard in the environment we're in to do that networking, and hopefully it'll change soon. Any connections you have, really utilize them to connect to the next person so much as you can.
Right. I'm all, as the weather improves, I'm all for having a big outdoor networking session at 300 Tech Square and a big glass lawn. Yeah, I think that's what we should be doing. Any thoughts on kind of this idea of networking and especially from the science side, right? Like young investigators starting companies, like what should they be doing?
I think one idea from me is about actually looking at the website and actually seeing what are the different resources each of us actually provide. Like for instance, Open Innovation website within AstraZeneca, we have a lot of compounds and assays and data that we share for free. So I think that's a resource that you could take advantage of when you're on the other side. But if you don't know that such a thing exists, then that's problematic, right? So I would say, go to each of our websites and see what are the things we offer. And there is usually a portal where you can ask questions. And I get the questions on the Open Innovation, so I answer so many of your questions. So I think that I would highly recommend.
Do you all think that when it comes to academics and kind of interacting with big pharma, that are they doing a good job with it, or do you think they should kind of do more of that? Because I know that from a BD&L perspective, sometimes you go to networking sessions and we all meet each other. It's sometimes you don't really see the folks from academia. It'd be nice if they came to these things, but what are you seeing? And maybe this is kind of something that we should really push on academia. That they should come on. Anjali, you want to opine on that?
Yeah, I feel like academia is also not like a monolith, right? I feel like institutions that Liz mentioned, the translational grants before, where sort of spinning out companies and startups is a priority. They seem to have many other systems in place where you seem to manage to connect with some of those folks. It's not all institutions actually have, that as a priority, or are resourced appropriately to be able to facilitate things for their faculty or postdocs. So I think a bigger challenge there, so some tech transfer offices are not as well resourced as others either, right? So I'm sure academics are dealing with, their own challenges, but, to the extent you can, group around, like, your local, making this up, if you're a university in the state of Georgia, can you go through Georgia Bio? Can you make some connections, where there's like a larger group, that it could be worth our time, for example, to go hold an event if we feel we're going to connect with many, many interesting technologies, as opposed to one-off from PIs. It just gets very difficult. So, definitely reach out to us for ideas like that, because, we will work with you, alongside you, to maybe create forums, where there can be more of these meet and greets. So that's just, one idea to consider.
Swarna, how about yourself, since you seem to have at AstraZeneca some systematic programs?
Yeah, I think we run conferences that are focused for the academic as well, and many of our scientists are also in the scientific advisory board of those conferences, so that gives a little bit of visibility and connection if people want to reach out. But definitely I agree that we could be doing more in that segment.
And Wendi, since you have a big background from the academic side of things, and now coming into the industry side, what do you think that academics are proactive enough in kind of getting out there with industry, or there's more to do?
So I would say, it's a mixed bag, actually, a little bit. There are some scientists that are really sophisticated in their pitch and are very flexible and know it's going to be a huge investment and are ready to do it. Then there's some others that I think don't realize how important that pitch is. And I think the TLOs need to work with them to refine their pitches so that it can be because their time is as precious as ours, right? And so it can be more, the outcomes might be better. We have gone to some presentations where the science was amazing, but the pitch didn't sell as well to our internal scientists. And so I would just say my recommendation for the TLOs, whether you have the resources in terms of, these funds or not, but if you have an opportunity that you think is really important, then I would say spend the time on that to get the pitch right.
I know that, so I mean, kind of what can academia do, but I guess let's turn the table and say, what can we do? That, for example, venture capitalists are very proactive about walking the halls of labs and getting to know investigators. And so what are your thoughts on this? I mean, what should Big Pharma be doing? Should we be walking the halls of academia? And do you think that we don't do a good job in that sense? I'll start with you, Wendi, and then we'll go around.
I wish we could walk the halls, actually. That would be really important. I know when I was in academia, a lot of our startup companies originated because the VCs were walking the halls and just having coffee and, hey, what are you thinking about? And non-confidential, but what are you thinking about? And then it progressed to, some really amazing companies that actually got acquired. So I think walking the halls, you can't replace really that conversation, to be honest. And I wish we could do that, actually.
Yeah, I would say.
Liz, at Merck, do you guys do that also?
There just likely isn't the ability to do that as much as we'd want to do. We do rely on our scientists who have great relationships with different academic labs and institutions to really foster those relationships and as much as they can. I would say, I think it's not a bad thing for VCs to be walking the halls and doing this. I think every piece of our ecosystem is important, and VCs have an important role to play in the ecosystem, and it's great that they're doing that and helping our ecosystem get to the next stage. And so I think it's I don't think we need to replace it or compete with it. I think it's a natural way, whether the academic group wants to work with pharma or start a company. I think both paths are okay.
I wonder if it makes sense for pharma to kind of host kind of like get to know you events like within the labs at the major institutes and really kind of explain what it is that we do and why it's important for us to work together. I know that in my past, there were a couple of times where we reached out to some universities and kind of did that, and I think the investigators greatly appreciate that. But it's kind of hard to be consistent kind of thing. And Jay, you try to do that as well, kind of walk the halls, or just not enough time and not enough people to
Yeah, definitely not enough time or not enough people. But, again, going back to, like I do, my colleagues do serve on, external advisory boards to be able to review applications coming in for translational grants, right? So, again, I would, urge people to remember that stuff coming out of academia is not always ready, for a deal with industry, right? It does have to go through many steps of validation and de-risking, and so each of these steps it's important. And so to us it's an early look at something that might be coming down the pike, and then participate in nurturing the innovation as opposed to just harnessing the innovation, right? And at the same time we can be having those discussions internally about, hey, I just saw this way of solving a certain problem you have, and so there's just so much groundwork that has to be laid that I think it's a process, where the first time you're aware of a technology may not be ready, but then going back to having a variety of tools, where we're unrolling sort of new co-creation capabilities now internally, so maybe there will be people designated to walk the halls, in the future as well. So.
Yeah, I'll just add that, we mentioned it briefly earlier that many of our companies, like Merck, we do have a venture arm of our group. So they do look for seeding new companies, participating early in Series A's. Usually when the companies are too early for a BD deal, we do refer them to our Emerald Ventures team because they really are there to try to help bridge that gap as well. So there are different opportunities to work with pharma and for those earlier things as well.
And we are all a global organization, right? So it will be really very difficult to walk the halls of all the major universities across the globe. So I think what we have focused on is like focusing, developing that relationship and trust for over a period of time, and hopefully at some point that'll mature into a more collaboration. So open innovation has been a great way for us to actually collaborate with a number of academics. We see it being a lot more used in the US and the EU, less so in the other parts of the world, but that's something that we are sort of actively encouraging as well. But that's a nice way of them getting to know us, getting to know the process, and so it's, and over a period of time it matures into something more substantial.
I want to get back to something that I think we alluded to, but I want to make sure we do talk about it, I guess, explicitly, which is kind of this idea of transparency of intent, right? That if a pharma comes to talk to you and hear what you have to say, it's not necessarily that we're interested, but it could be that but it might be of interest, right? And so to be honest and kind of upfront with the other side about why it is that we're talking to you or why we're willing to listen to what you have to say. How do you guys think about that? Wendi, I'm going to start with you on this one. This idea of transparency of intent and communicating it.
Yeah, no, it's a really essential part of any relationship. Actually, I think it's. The concern that pharma always has is, when you bring one of our scientists somewhere on a technology or a team, that the other side may interpret that as this is a go, and as opposed to a stepwise process that we have. And so it's really important to kind of set the expectations with the investigator. And I think that's really key as part of it, especially working with the academic. If you work with the TLO, yes, we're bringing a team, but work out what the steps would be to engage the investigator eventually, because I think that's the disconnect, and also the valuation. People just get very excited about valuation and how fast investigators, especially how fast the technology is going to be on the market. So, more transparency. If you get to that place where, yes, you're going to do a deal, just having more information on what the capabilities are for each side going forward and what the aspirations are.
Swarna, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think setting the expectation is really important at the outset. So when we start the meetings, if I'm part of it, I always say, hey, either this is like an exploratory, this is a new area that we are getting into and we're having multiple parallel conversation. Let's talk about, at a high level, what you're doing, and if that generates interest, then we'll follow up and then next level. So just going and setting that tone, saying that, hey, these are the expectations from my end, and hopefully the other person understand. I think that prevents unnecessary conflict at a later stage.
True.
Usually, how do you approach this at J&J?
Yeah, similarly, it's kind of, when we're putting an academic or an entrepreneur sort of in front of our, Janssen Research and Development, for example, colleagues, it's also our job to set, expectations on both sides. I would say, for the entrepreneur, ask us, what is driving interest? Why are we having this conversation at this time? And, we'll share with you absolutely, whether this is highly a high strategic fit at the moment, it's an adjacency, it's an area we're exploring, because that guides the conversation. And so definitely spend the time doing that, prep work up front, because it will also help you on how to construct that pitch, because if it's an area that, I often use the example, it's an area we are saying it's of high strategic interest, then, don't spend half your time telling us about commercial potential, because we already know that, so it's just trying to make sure that, you understand the goals of the meeting, so then you can be prepared. At the same time, for us, it's our credibility as well. We want to be sure that both sides understand. Chances are we've reviewed a deck already, so we know where, the state of the work. And so people already are coming in with some questions. So, just maybe having those goals well laid out.
Right. And Liz?
I really can't add.
Transparency?
I really can't add to everything the panelists have done. They've done a great job summarizing.
I think one of the things that I really kind of stress, like with my team and also with the scientists, is that for every opportunity that we look at, if for whatever reason there's no interest, I always try to ask them to basically kind of give 3 bullet points as to what you like about the technology, right? Before you kind of say, no, here's what we do like about it. It's, it's interesting for these reasons. We see potential here or there. And then, we tell them that unfortunately, it's not a fit for whatever reason. But I think that my view is that, we should be encouraging, right? I mean, you don't want to come across as always saying no and being discouraging. We want ideas to come back to us and okay, fine, this one might not have been the right one for us, but I'm sure, the next one could be, right? And so we want to kind of keep making sure that they come back to us. Okay, so I guess we only have a few minutes left. So in that, what I want to do is I want to turn to the golden nugget. So I'm going to ask each of you to give one golden nugget that you think somebody in the audience can take back with them and use in their office. And so I'm going to start with Liz on this one. First golden nugget.
Yeah, and I think it's in a way repeating what I mentioned earlier, right? Don't be afraid to reach out early and often to pharma, but just know that it may not lead to something right away, but it could help in building some more information or focusing resources on what is important. And I really think you should talk to all the pharma, right? Not just to be honest, because I think it's a great thing to get that advice across all of the companies. And if you're hearing the same thing 4 or 5 times, maybe you should listen to the advice, of what folks are saying. So do use it as a resource, and hopefully that'll help.
Wendi, what golden nugget do you have for the audience?
Well, I would say I still think the scientist relationship is the most important, and so those in the TLO or in the entrepreneurs, I would really focus on that relationship. I think you really need an internal champion at the pharma. There is a lot of internal programs, and it's really important to have that champion really voice your science to make progress at a company. I think that's really key. We rely a lot on our scientists to help make decisions about what we should pursue or not.
Right. Swarna, your golden nugget.
Yeah, I would say talk to all the innovation stakeholders, that is pharma, the investors, the patients, regulatory. I've been on both sides of the table, like startup as well as in pharma, and I know how different perspectives are important, and it helps shape your story. It helps you think about the product fit and stuff. So talk to all the innovation stakeholders.
Anjali?
Yeah, I think, so much has been said already. Maybe just to add that, we definitely see ourselves as your advocates internally, right? We have a lot of stakeholders internally that we're managing and juggling. So, we are your allies in this. We're trying to make sure that if something is important, it gets in front of the right stakeholder and the right champion. So we will be doing that work internally, to find the right champion, who's the budget holder for that particular, deal or transaction. So we're doing all of that work. We're definitely like aligned with you here. We're not in competition, and so it's just keeping that in mind. And then maybe just a word to say, if you have like other connections within our company or something, certainly by all means, use them, but don't try to like bypass the process, because internally there is a process, and it just creates a lot more work for everybody if, you go around the process. So stuff will still get done, so it just makes everybody's life a lot easier if we follow process, in these large organizations. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. What people might not understand is what Anjali is referring to is, we all have kind of certain stages or geographies or whatever it may be. And so if you talk to one of us and we happen to give the not now message with the why, going to someone else is just going to come back to us eventually. So do know that there is that. So we are looking for those internal advocates. We are, trying to find those folks to help bring it forward. Oh, and we lost Imran. Yeah, I think we're up on a minute left. So maybe I will, on behalf of Imran, thank the coordinators for having all of us at this meeting. And thank you to all the great panelists. It's great to see you guys. Oh, he's back, so I'll let him close out. Hi, Imran.
So with this congestion, we're actually at the time limit. So I think this is probably a good time for us to perhaps bring this to a conclusion. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. And of course, always feel free to reach out to us in the future in order to establish connections with us. I think we're all very eager to meet you. So with that, I am going to say thank you, and we are now at a close.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you so much, Imran, and all of our pharma innovation panelists for a very enlightening panel. I know I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I hope all of our attendees have enjoyed this panel and our event today. I just want to say that it truly takes a village to pull together an event like this, and this year has been no exception. Besides all our amazing sponsors who stood by us this year, we are incredibly grateful to have a phenomenal program committee who helped with pulling together the panels, keynote speaker, and the poster sessions for today. So a big thank you from Vineet and I to all of our behind-the-scenes MALSI+2021 planning committee, specifically Todd Keeler, Shelley Amster, Lucy Rochard, Danielle Silva, Karen Udgoff, Roger Fischette, Jenny Rowe, Joel Bresla, Denise Aronson, Lauren Laidlaw, and Emily Smith. Thank you all. You are fabulous. And at this time, I would also like to take time to recognize one special member of this year's program committee who has gone above and beyond in ensuring that this event is as successful as can be. This member has been involved with MALSI for a very long time and always has a smile on her face, a very positive can-do attitude, who never gets flustered about anything and quietly goes about accomplishing a ton of things for us. So without further ado, for going the extra mile this year, we would like to recognize and present the MALSI 2021 Volunteer Award to our very own Lauren Laidlaw, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Safety Partners Incorporated. Congratulations, Lauren, and please join us on stage so everyone can see you and appreciate you.
Hi. Thank you so much. I'm shocked.
Well, congratulations and thank you so much, Lauren. You are fabulous.
Thank you. Same to you and same to everybody else on the committee that did a ton of heavy lifting. Thanks so much. I'm shocked.
Well, thank you again, and thanks everyone. But last and not the least, a big shout out to Charlie Hipwood, President and CEO at Mass Ventures, for supporting this event. Meg Wilcox, our marketing lead from Mass Ventures, for the incessant emailing and promotion. And finally, Rachel and Jenna from Innovation Studios, who have managed all the logistical support and helped with promotion as well for MALSI. So as you know, this has run pretty seamlessly. Lauren, I think you'll attest to it as well, for the most part, and primarily due to all the prep work that has gone into it. So thank you, ladies. And Lauren, if you want to say anything, please do before we head off to networking and have enjoy the rest of the evening.
No, just thanks again. It's been such a pleasure, like every year. And you know, with COVID and everything, there's been so many challenges, but the group just came together and got it done like always. So thanks again. Looking forward to next year.
In person.
In person.
All right.